Hey, thanks for jumping in. We got a wedding to film. Over there at this church. By the way, this view is really great with the meadow in front and the church in the back. But you know what's also great? I just upgraded my camera with the latest Kolari OLPF. This is getting rid of all the moire. I don't have to worry about filming architecture or clothes. Moire will just not appear anymore. And also, if you have a Lumix camera, Sigma camera, Nikon camera or Sony camera, it doesn't matter. Kolari got you covered. By the way, did you upgrade your camera already with an OLPF? Well, let me tell you about how moire is actually appearing and what an OLPF is. On the way to the church. Let's take some time. If you think about pixels in video, you mostly think about individual points that can vary in brightness and color. They can be red, blue, yellow, pink, white, or any color. But on a camera sensor, we have actually a different structure, which is composed of several layers. The bottom layer consists of photosites, which are retrieving light. They just measure how much light they got. So here, these different points are, for example, the photosites. Above, we have the color filter, mostly with the Bayer pattern. This filters each point for red, green, and blue. So you see a pixel in a video is not the same as on a camera sensor. The camera then is interpolating these different colors of the photosites to generate pixels. So it takes here the different points and mixes then the color to estimate roughly what color this point would be. If we have now a pattern like the texture of fabric of a shirt, we will see the bright outer threads and the dark inner threads in a changing pattern. At specific distance, this pattern is then interfering with the Bayer pattern of our sensor. So here, for example, I have lines, so the dark parts of the threads of a shirt, and they are then interfering with the pattern. The pixels, which are blue and green, are receiving then a lot of light, and then instead of giving feedback back about the structure of the shirt, we actually get a color, also if the shirt has no color. And this color can then also change if this pattern moves over the sensor. Here I have my chart, which I give away for free. The link is down in the description. You can use it for your own YouTube video, for example. You can test other cameras. When I move this pattern, then below the different interfering pattern, you can see we actually retrieve a color back instead of information of the structure. So this can be then red and blue or green, for example, depending how I move the sensor. And we also can generate waves. So when the pattern is a little bit tinier than the sensor structure, you can see we get here this pattern of colors that are rotating or moving through. And the smaller it gets, the smaller also the pattern gets. There's then also a point where the pattern is disappearing. I guess that's probably up here at 2, where it's again fine. Here, for example, we have lines with 5-degree angle. And as you can see, the colors are moving like waves through them when the pattern moves over the sensor. Then here we have the horizontal lines equivalent to the vertical lines, where the pattern also changes. And we have also diagonal lines. So you see, moire can appear at different angles, not just at vertical or horizontal patterns. So to combat that, some cameras are using OLPF filters. What they do is actually they put on top of the sensor a layer that is blurring light in a vertical and horizontal way. So things are a little bit less sharp and the light is more distributed on the different sensors, colors of the sensor. Here, for example, if I blur the lines, you can see the structure is still visible, but if I blur it more and more, it becomes invisible. And instead of getting the information about different colors on the shirt, it's now all equal and there's only a very slight hint of the texture. Depending on how strong the OLPF is, you might maybe still get a specific color from the pattern, or you might not have moire at all. So here we have my test chart that you can download for free and use, for example, to test your own camera. Or if you plan to do your own video, you can reuse it and test other cameras. So I'm really excited for results of other cameras, how they compete. You can already see, we see some moire. The camera loses focus from time to time, so I'm not sure if it's maybe setting in the AF that was not so correct, but you can see on 3 we have moving moire. Just so you are aware, the camera is moving away and I'm doing a dolly zoom effect. So that's why you see the background is moving. Now we have a short focus loss, and when it latches on again and has the focus, the rainbow party starts. We have here at 4 and 5 some slight moire, and now it's very sharp and the moire effect is like very strong. It's like really bright and really vibrant, and that's something you don't want. Just imagine you have a group of people with suits on an event or just clothes, and they stand at different distances, and for all of them you will have this moire effect, because it does not only appear when the pattern matches with your camera sensor, it also appears when it's smaller than the pattern of your camera sensor. And that's something where an OLPF really can help to mitigate it. Now let's look at the Kolari Vision OLPF filter. So this modification allows me to shoot anything I want without worrying about moire. So if we talk about people in suits or dresses or architecture, it's a lot more hassle-free, and I don't have to worry that I will have footage that I have to throw away or spend a lot of time of editing in post. Here you can see at number 4 there are some very faint waves, but they're very subtle. Also at number 5. I'm not even sure if the YouTube compression will get rid of it. Also, one difference is we don't have any more these strong colors that we had before, which are really taking away all the color information, which is here not the case. Here at number 6 you can see the moire is starting and we have very subtle color. But be aware, this is before applying noise reduction in post. Once we applied noise reduction, this will be also taken care of. Here we can see now at number 7 and 8 that there are some small flickering. But as I said, let's have a look at the noise reduction application, which I will show after this, and you will see we can get rid of a lot of that. When comparing the various formats, only at 120p we have moire due to line skipping. Otherwise, all the other formats look a lot better, and you can see even oversampling doesn't help. Now let's have a look how we can get rid of moire in post. Here you can see we still have some moire left on number 4. But keep in mind we had to sacrifice a lot of detail to get rid of the moire without the OLPF. With the OLPF we had to apply a lot more subtle changes and could keep a lot more detail. Here in DaVinci Resolve I have now a video of B-raw footage in 5.9K, and I filmed my test chart, and as you can see the actual black and white chart has now some colors. So I did a continuous zoom so the chart stays at the same height and location, but as you can see here there is this flickering of the colors that I demonstrated before. You can see we have it at various locations, so it's pretty bad. Of course that's a more scientific test, so it's really rare that you will encounter this much moire in real life, but when you encounter it, it becomes very strong. And we can actually combat that. So one way is to use denoise. So what I usually do is I have a denoise node. For B-raw I mostly use currently 11.9 for the temporal noise reduction. And then what you actually can do is you can use some spatial noise reduction to get rid of some of the moire. What this actually does is it blurs the chroma channel. And if you deliver video, you will anyway deliver 420. So the chroma channel will anyway be blurred. So it's okay to blur it a bit. You could of course blur it a lot, but this means you blur the colors also for other elements. And that's then of course not so great. And then you could track the selection, blur the chroma threshold, and by this then get rid of a lot of moire. Another way to get rid of moire is to split the luma and chroma channel and blur the chroma channel. So this is kind of similar like denoise, but you can do a little bit more customization on the blur. So you can do this either with HSL channels, where you change the color space to HSL, and then you select the H, S and L channel. So we would have then one luma channel where we have only channel 3 and the other channel has channel 1 and 2. And then you combine them again with composite mode add. Here in this example, I chose to select for luma monochrome, and for HSL I reduced here the gain. So we have then for one channel only the color. So here you can see the color. Chroma channel, it's a bit hard to see, but very dark we have the different colors. Maybe if I put behind a node and increase it, yeah, then you can see the color. So we have here only color information. And this is actually what we have to blur then. So I applied here a box blur filter. You can experiment also with different blurs. And as you can see from this color information, we go suddenly to having just red and green, or whatever this color is then in the end. Then you can also play with the blur strength until the moire is being removed. So 0.11 is pretty good. And with this, you can then also look at other parts of your image if you maybe blur the color too much and the edges become fuzzy. Then let's deactivate this again. This is just for demonstration. And I activate the luma channel. And as you can see, the moire is pretty much gone. Only here you can see a little faint blue-purple color, but it's more faint. So this is of course an optimal scenario. In real-life scenarios, you have to do a lot of tracking and masking if the moire becomes stronger. This can sometimes be easy if you have, for example, a suit which has a specific color and is standing out from the background. Now here I have another technique that I like to use to reduce moire, which is the color compressor. So what I do is I choose then the color of the dress or the suit, shirt that has then the specific color like blue. I pick it then with my color compressor. So let's say here we want to have target color black. And then you can compress the different parts. So for example, the hue, this would help if we have then different colors like blue, green, flickering. For example, I can say, okay, like please have the same color and don't flicker. Then if there's changes in saturation, it can help. Also luminance could help a little bit. Luminance is actually where it helps then with luma moire. So what we did now is we got rid of the chroma moire. The luma moire is actually a lot difficult to get rid of. You can see here if I move the cursor, the playhead around, you can still see the waves moving through. And this we can only achieve by increasing the chroma blur. And that's pretty difficult. So without losing quality, actually there's no way around. The only way is if you have very fast luma moire, you can counter it with temporal noise reduction and increase the luma threshold. Since here it's very slowly moving, there's like no way of getting rid of it. And this is then kind of like the ant example you have. So we still see some of the moire. Of course I could go here more into it, but if I increase this too much, you will affect other parts of your image and this will then look not very good. I just do an example of how it looked before and after, so you can compare it. So this is what we had before. And this is what we have after. And as I said, there's a lot of work involved in tracking then the moire, because most of the time you have to crank up the values that it will tear apart the rest of your image. So if you go to the OLPF example, you will also see a little bit of moire. It's not anymore so strong, it's more faint and also a lot smaller, but it's still a little bit visible in B-roll. So you can see here some red-green waves moving through when we look at the number 5. And actually this can be countered a little bit with noise reduction. So I apply again my noise reduction, then I apply my spatial noise reduction by using 11.9. And as you can see, this pretty much gets rid of most of the moire. It's not super perfect, there's still some pattern visible. And Here we have also a little bit of color. But if we look at it in the whole, it's a lot more subtle. There will be also some YouTube compression applied, so you won't see the moire anymore so much. Now we are looking at the differences of sharpness when using an OLPF on the left and no OLPF on the right. As you can see, we have a slight temperature change due to the OLPF. Otherwise, this is 5 times zoomed in, and I think it's real hard to make out any differences. If there's any difference, then it's so subtle, it's really difficult to notice. So for the further tests, I colorized by hand the chart to analyze how the color is actually getting lost when applying those fixes that we learned. So here we have the color chart where we have the checkerboard pattern, and I used different colors. I used blue, green, red and yellow, and I colorized those dots in between. Then here on the lines I did the same with different patterns. And if we look here, we have the chart without the OLPF, and to fix this now I apply first the denoise, where we have the luma threshold, chroma threshold for the temporal noise reduction, and then we are applying 11.9 for the spatial noise reduction. You can see already that's helping a little bit, even if it's not getting rid of everything. Then as next step, we have the HSL, luma and chroma channels that we are splitting, and where I blur then the chroma channel. So if I deactivate it, activate it, you can see this is already improving a bit. However, you can see we have the disadvantage that now the colors here are actually getting lost. This here is all just mush now. So what I have to do is I actually have to go into the chroma channel and I have to put this down. We cannot use here this high blur value that I presented you before. So if I go a little bit up, I have to find the point where I say, okay, this is still acceptable. We still retain the color information. 0.06 is kind of like the highest I would go, maybe 7, but this is then already the limit. You can already see we're losing some saturation due to the chroma blur. And as you can see here, we still have some of this moire effect, this rainbow effect. If I deactivate it and activate it, you can see it helps a little bit, but not much. And also, by the way, I just realized here on the top, I have also some moire with this camera. Now let's look at the example of the chart that's colored by using the Kolari OLPF. As I said before, we have a slight color shift and the moire is very subtle. Keep in mind, this is zoomed in several times. So on the actual picture, it's really subtle and very difficult to see. We can just enable noise reduction. So we're using temporal noise threshold, the same 11.9, and we're using the chroma threshold. We're just checking here on the color chart that that's not blurring our colors too much. You can see it's kind of like taking out some of the vibrance. So if I look at it with and without, it actually does a really good job. We still have some luma moire there. So I think here I would even go a little bit lower, like to 5 as maximum. Now let's see how it looks before and after. So without OLPF, we have this rainbow effect. And with the OLPF, we have this very slight moire effect that's barely noticeable. When applying now a post filter, we can still see some of the moire. And when having an OLPF in place, this subtle noise reduction is barely noticeable. Now we're looking at a real life scenario. So we just looked at those scientific tests and now we have a real suit. And this suit is not even special. There are no patterns or stripes on it, it's just a standard suit. As you can see, on the left is the Kolari OLPF, and on the right, where we have no OLPF, we have already this moire pattern appearing while I'm moving backwards. They appear in different colors. Here I'm also using the dolly zoom effect. So for comparison, I'm also zooming in so you really can see the moire pattern and how big of a difference an OLPF filter makes. For me, I would never buy again a camera without an OLPF filter, except Kolari offers an upgrade. So you might think to yourself now, why should I even go with a Lumix S5 II, S5 IIX when I have this effect? I could go with Sony or even Nikon and get 4K 60p in full frame. Well, not so fast. If you look here at the list, you can see also the Sony a7 IV is listed, as well as the Nikon Z6 III, also the Sigma FP. So this means these two cameras also don't have an OLPF, and you also would have to invest additional money, currently $600, to upgrade the cameras do not have this Moiré effect. So this wraps up our technical deep dive into Moiré and what an OLPF can do for your footage. As you can see, the Kolari OLPF is making all of your footage that you record with your camera usable. And you can just go into the link in the description below and upgrade your own camera and get it on the cinema level. So I hope to see you in the next awesome video. Like and subscribe.